Hi, guys. Welcome back. Today, we're going to visit with Sheila Hill. She's an intuitive life coach and a spiritual guide, and she's going to talk a little bit about anger. I think we all experience anger. I believe that a good walk defuses anger, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And even when you're on your walk, sometimes you can find yourself getting angry because you're pondering something that upsets you. Maybe it's Dale and Joyce at work. Maybe it's your husband or wife at home. Maybe it's a situation bumming you out with your family or with the country or politics. There's a million and one reasons why we get angry, but I think we all agree we'd like to have less anger in our lives. Let's hear what Sheila Hill has to say about this subject.
Today we're talking about anger. Anger is actually a part of the creator-co-creator template. As anything and everything comes into creation, it also begins its destruction and deconstruction cycle. So anger, being a destructive force, is actually a part of creation. It's not something that needs to necessarily be healed, nor is it something to be ashamed of. So let's unpack this a little bit. When we talk about anger from a more third dimensional place, anger is the mask that pain wears. Anger is the protector of the pain, and it's often projected and put upon other people in very destructive ways, unconsciously. The angrier the person, the more pain that they have, the bigger the reaction, the more the pain point is being pushed upon, that sort of thing. Then we move into our spiritual communities where there's all kinds of shame and judgment around anger, that anger is just not even on the menu once you become a spiritual person, that you're not allowed to be angry, and that if you are angry, it's because you have something you haven't healed, and it's something to be ashamed of to be a spiritual person and to be angry. Another layer to anger is that there are many, many people in the world, I am not one of them, that are actually afraid of their own anger. That when anger begins to present in the body, they become fearful of themselves. Quite often it's because they had a parent that was very angry and destructive with their anger, and therefore they don't want to allow themselves to become so dysregulated and so destructive because that's what they experienced. So sometimes the childhood trauma or experiences in your life with other people that were dysregulated in their anger means that you're afraid of your own anger.
Kind of like David Banner. You remember from that show back in the 70s and 80s where he would be like, "You don't want to see me when I'm angry," and all of a sudden he's turning green and
And I want you to know that anger needs to exist. Anger is absolutely a part of the creator template. As each time something comes into creation, it begins its destruction and its deconstruction. It is a part of the flow of who we are and the experience that we are in. Sometimes, and I've seen this with clients recently, sometimes the most healing thing that you can do for you with you is to get mad, to feel safe being mad, to use your anger in a constructive way, consciously, so that you are not using it to be destructive to other people, but to stand up in your own innate power and say no more. I am not living in this wound trauma healing cycle anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. No, I'm not doing it. Or there's certain boundaries that need to be held with that level of, I'm standing up to this. No, I am not taking this. Or when you look out in the world and you are angry at God because ascension is taking too long, or you're angry at the politicians or whatever, use that anger in a safe way that is conscious to move the codes within the body that are destructive, that have that capability of burning off the old. Don't get angry and stay angry. We all know someone that's just an angry person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that anger has a valid reason for being here, and it's a tool that we can use, particularly on this ascension path. You can move anger in and up and through the body and burn down and deconstruct and destruct old timelines, new timelines that no longer need to come into fruition, into manifestation. You can burn through codes. You can heal with your anger. Sometimes that inner child just needs to know that you're going to stand up for her or him. Anger is not something to be ashamed of. Anger is a part of our creator ability because we are light and dark. We are the yin and the yang. We are destruction and we are creation, both all the time. It's what do you do with it? And do you do it consciously?
She really gets into this, doesn't she? So I agree with her on the standpoint of, anger is going to be there. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to protect that inner child that wants you to stand up for them, right? I understand that completely. Think she also says something that I also agree. Don't stay angry, right? You don't want to harbor anger because then the only person it poisons is you. Anger, while it might be natural and it might be part of the template of the Lord or whatever, right? I don't necessarily think it's something that's supposed to be held on to, right? And it doesn't mean you transfer it either. Just because Dale stole your lunch out of the fridge does not give you a right to be mean to your husband or your wife. God, that Dale.
It's safe to be angry. And I know lots of clients that are very feeling unsafe about the possibility of being dysregulated and destructive in their anger. And that's something that they need to heal is, can I be safe and be angry? You can use anger as a tool in the body without being dysregulated into emotion when you use it consciously. Anger has its place, and spirituality has completely lost all understanding that anger is a tool. Yes, in the 3D, it is destructive when it is projected unconsciously onto others, but anger still has a place. I hope that I've sort of offered something to you here in this video of maybe where you are. Maybe you shy away from your own anger, in which case that is what's next for you to heal.
Yeah, sometimes I feel guilty if I get angry at people, and sometimes that guilt will last days on end, and that's a true honest to goodness story. I like what she has to say. Let's watch one more little video of hers real quick. Okay, this one is called Deprivation and Healing, and she talks a little bit about dieting, so I thought it would be interesting. Again, I don't necessarily agree with everything that she's saying, but at the same time, it's a different point of view that I think you might find interesting. The reason I showed the anger bit the last time is because some of us are walking and it has nothing to do with weight. Sometimes we have anger issues, right? And we need to get out and walk. That's not me, by the way, in case you're wondering. I'm just assuming out of every 1,000 people watching, there might be a handful that are dealing with anger issues. And anger really is a poison if you hold on to it for too long. So by walking, a lot of times we're able to kind of look at things from a sane point of view. When we're angry, we're not even the same person that we normally are, right? We're in anger mode. But when you're walking, it's so easy to just kind of relax and enjoy the fresh air that you can kind of rationalize and bring it back down to earth.
You can't heal and do deprivation at the same time. Not when you are being called into this deepest core wound healing that is literally most often about the deprivation of a mother's love. You can't heal and deprive yourself at the same time. A common theme that I see in my clients, and most of them are women, is this whole good girl syndrome that becomes the belief, that becomes the identity. I'm going to be a good spiritual person and not eat meat. I'm going to be a good host for my body, a good steward of my biology, and I'm not going to have alcohol, and I'm not going to have sugar, and I'm not going to have, and I'm not going to have, and I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to go, and I'm not going to, all of the things that I kind of call the good girl syndrome really are more deprivation layered on top of the deepest core deprivation of a mother's love that is looking to be healed. So, this is why diets don't work. This is why doing anything at all that is depriving you in any way, shape, or form, or could be perceived by you, despite the fact that there is lots of research and content and intellectual support for why you shouldn't do a certain thing or have a certain thing or eat a certain thing, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the core of the core is asking to be filled, and it already has had it up to here with deprivation. So eat the ice cream, drink the glass of wine, have the hamburger, stay up really late watching shit on TV, sleep all day, break the rules, have some fun with your inner child, and stop with all the deprivation. There is no getting this right. There is only getting through, and you cannot heal from the deprivation of love if you are living in a container of more deprivation.
So I kind of disagree with her. It sounds wonderful, right? Because the reality is, if you're depriving yourself, you're kind of hating yourself at the same time, right? But you guys we've all been living a life where we're not depriving ourselves of the sugar, of the Coca-Cola, of the extra, stuffings and stuff on top of our potato that's already loaded, right? So I think sometimes it is good to challenge yourself just to show yourself that you can do things. Is it good to also not always deprive yourself? Of course. That's why if you ever do cheat off your diet, just make sure you go right back to your diet. No big deal. Anyway, there's a million ways you can think about this. If you agree with me, disagree with me, or would like to just leave a comment about Sheila Hill in general, please do so. Until then, grab your shoes. Let's go for a walk. Hi, Venters. So we just watched a video on anger. Does it exist? Definitely. Definitely exists. Get this out a little bit. Definitely exists. I walk, and about 1 out of every 15 or 20 walks, I might have an anger issue, right? It's usually short-lived because, I don't let things bother me too long. But some of us are walking, and it might not have anything to do with our health at all, If you have a short fuse and you get angry all the time, that's when a walk is really, really beneficial to you. If you're in a relationship where you and your spouse or your significant other are constantly at each other's throats, guys, that's when it's really incredible to go for a walk. You might be able to save your relationship just by going for a walk during those moments, I can remember back in the day, sometimes me and a girlfriend would argue over the silliest things. And those little silly arguments, and I mean over really petty little things, those things would make us get this rage in us. And that rage would, many times lead to a breakup or, lead to saying something that you don't really mean, but in the heat of the moment, you say things that are mean, right? We've all done that before. And if you can kind of make a proactive plan that, hey, every day before I say something out of my mouth, I'm going to go and take a little walk and think about it, Easier said than done, of course, because sometimes if somebody wants to argue with you, it's hard to get away from that situation, right? But at the same time, you can always change the way you are if you're the one doing the arguing, Got to learn how to direct your anger and rage at a different person or a different thing. And in this case, you can aim it at your walk. You go on your walk and you start breathing the fresh air, seeing the neighbors out and about. And before you know it, you're feeling a little better, when somebody is arguing with you and they're saying mean things, you know, if you can somehow restrain from joining them and saying those mean things too, that's a win, you know? Or it could be a loss, right? If they're always saying mean things to you and you never stand up for yourself. But again, those are things that you could still battle with yourself on the walk. Kind of decide which route you want to take, you know? It all goes back to toxic people though, right? If people are just kind of a bummer for you to hang out with, you know, you have to ultimately decide if you want to hang out with them long term. I think we all had friends back in the day that we thought we would be friends with them forever, but, you know, sometimes things change. Sometimes things change. But the second thing that the gal talked about, I remember her last name was Hill. Her first name escapes me right now, but the second thing that she was talking about was deprivation. And she was kind of leading the charge to just do whatever you want and stay up late, watch TV, eat cupcakes, the whole 9 yards, right? And if we weren't in this challenge, and if I wasn't walking, I would probably agree with her, like, yeah, what's holding you back? You shouldn't deprive yourself. But as I get older, I realize that some of us have cholesterol issues. Some of us have legitimate obesity issues. Some of us want to escape type 2 diabetes, right? So that's one of those places where I just have to kind of disagree with her, or at least half the time disagree with her, right? Because there are some people out there that really do kind of deprive themselves out of a lot of nice things. There's a lot of people that die with millions of dollars in the bank, and it just kind of makes you wonder, what were they waiting to do with their money? Weren't they ever going to spend it and enjoy it on themselves? And some people are really excellent at making money, but they're not necessarily excellent at treating themselves like a king or queen, you know? Hi guys, doing a little extra credit here. It's about 6:30 in the evening, Arizona time. I believe it's like 92 degrees right now, which, believe it or not, it doesn't feel like it because the sun's not beating down on me, you know? But I wanted to talk with you guys about stress, because sometimes stress can just flare up out of nowhere, right? Maybe you had a troubling day at work. Maybe you and your significant other had an argument. Maybe your kids are going through some stuff in their lives, and it's kind of bleeding into your life and stressing you out. And I just wanted to let you know that you're not alone, that on any given day, a lot of us venters might be dealing with stress, you know? That was why I didn't name my channel Walk, Talk, and Be Happy, right? Sometimes you gotta vent about this world, you know? You have to remember that in order for you to get change out of this world, and this is hard for me to remember sometimes too, the change really comes from within. There's no other way to look at it, because the outside world is always going to be what it is. So what we need to do is we need to come to grips with that, okay? And if we have toxic friends that make us feel bad about ourselves, you know, maybe we need to make a proactive plan to put ourselves in a situation to find new friends, right? If our job is getting to the point where it makes us miserable, even if it pays extremely well, maybe we need a proactive plan to get our resume ready and to start putting it out on Monster and Indeed and all these different sites to see if we can get lucky and find a job that's even better with half the stress. Because those things happen. There's a lot of YouTube channels that actually talk about how the best way to get a significant raise is not to go tell your boss that you've been there forever and you're loyal and a great employee, although that's the style I like, right? The actual best way to get a raise is to go out and find a new job, you know? Now, is that easier said than done? Yeah, usually things like that end up being easier said than done. But sometimes your stress isn't even financially related or job related. Sometimes we just think too much. You know, that's the problem with us as human beings. We think about things. And sometimes even empathy and sympathy that you have for other people and situations that are going on, right, that are beyond your control, sometimes those things can stress you out, you know? this thing going on with the Israelis and the Palestinians, that could be very stressful, you know? How many Israelis and Palestinians might have been friends, right? And then all of a sudden this goes down, and all of a sudden it's like, God, I don't even know if I can be friends with this person, right? That's a tough deal. That is a real tough deal, you know? And there's so many things that we can do to try to relieve our stress. So many things that we actually have as an advantage as walkers, right? As venters, we have to be careful, because sometimes people can get so worked up, right, that they can kind of literally explode, have a heart attack, have a stroke, you know, whatever the situation is. And some of the people watching this today might have had a heart attack or stroke before. And so you kind of understand the importance of trying to stay calm, right? Trying to keep things in perspective. The goal is to make it till tomorrow, you know? And that's the one thing that I want you guys to kind of keep in mind, is that sometimes things don't go our way, but we now have a consistent way where we can think on these things. So take your power walk when you're feeling good. But when you're feeling bad, get your shoes on and go walk anyway, because there's something magical about the walks, you know? Every time I'm out here, especially like now, it's warm, but as you can see, I'm walking in the shade. I can't tell you how nice this shade feels. I would never know it was 92 degrees out. I would think basically in the shade here, it feels like, I don't know, maybe 78, 77. I don't feel like I'm sweating. Now, don't get me wrong, by the time I make it back home, I probably will. But I just want to let you guys know that sometimes working on your stress can simply be jumping into your hobbies, right? Let's say you like making model airplanes or models. That's a great stress reliever, right? Takes your mind off of things for a couple hours, helps you focus. Well, now you have this wonderful thing called a walk, right? And you can do whatever I'm doing at any time. In other words, maybe I said that wrong. You can do what I'm doing now at any time in your life, right? Even if it's 9 or 10 at night, there's nothing stopping you from taking a walk around the block. Assuming you have a decent neighborhood, okay? Let's not be risque. But I just want you guys to know that you can take a walk for pleasure. You can take walks for health and exercise purposes. But one of the best reasons to take a walk is just to blow off steam, you know? Since you're not going to change the world, let's take a walk and we'll fume about it. Get that venting out of your soul, right? Think proactively how you can avoid stressful situations going forward. And maybe you can use stress to motivate you. You know, sometimes there's good stresses, right? Your rent on the 1st of each month, that might come across to you as something very stressful, but it does motivate you to wake up in the morning and go to work. So there are some pros to the life that we live, right? And there are some pros to the stresses that we go through living that life, you know? So another thing that we can do, I have a lot of watches. I'm not wearing one now, but I have a lot of watches. And one thing you can do is you can stare at the second hand of a watch. If you have a smart watch or an Apple Watch, maybe you can use a skin on it, right, where it looks like a regular watch. I think one of my friends that had a Apple Watch could actually make his look like a regular watch. And what you want to do is you want to try to breathe through your nose, and you just want to kind of watch the second hand as it goes one revolution around the clock. And if you're still feeling a little stressed, watch it go 2 or 3 times around. And what you have now is a quick little way that you can work on your breathing. And again, breathing through your nose is just superior than breathing through your mouth. Well, I can't, Jesse, I've got allergies. I know, but if you can, see if you can focus on breathing through your nose. If you can't, then just breathe through your mouth and try to relax, okay? We gotta work with what we can work with here, you know? But I want to let you know that probably the biggest situation that we're dealing with our weight is probably not our food and probably not our exercise. It's probably our stress levels. And let's be honest, the last couple years, there's been a lot of things to stress about, hasn't there? Seems like money doesn't go as far as it used to. Seems like the bills are getting crushingly high every single year, you know? So the solace that you have is that at least you found a new form of entertainment that doesn't cost you a thing, going on your walk. And if you end up getting a little bit of mental happiness out of things, it might actually keep you from having to go see a therapist. But again, if you find yourself in a stressful situation that is way beyond taking a walk, then you probably owe it to yourself to maybe look into seeing a therapist, you know? Sometimes the hurdles in our life can just be so much. And I want you to know that my hurdles are different than yours, and if you heard my hurdles, you might laugh and think those aren't hurdles at all. And vice versa. You never know what people are going through. And as I get older, I see so many friends of mine that are going through a tough time in life. I'm not crying here, I just feel like something went in my eye. I feel like I have a lot of friends that are going through so many things that are tough. But I look at them on Facebook and they're still smiling and living the good life, right? And that's where you got to remember that a lot of people that look happy on the outside are really, really stressed. My biggest fear is that that's you. And so I just want you to know that you're doing something very, very good by going on a walk, regardless of weight loss, regardless of weight gain, because sometimes stress can make you lose weight too, right? If you lose 10, 15 pounds, people say, God, what's going on with you? Are you feeling okay? It's because they can sense the stress, right? Conversely, you start gaining 10 or 15 pounds. Pam, are you feeling okay? Are you stressing out? People can sense these things. Sometimes we need to take a step back and say, regardless of weight gain or weight loss, I need to just take an extra walk in the afternoon when it cools down outside, mainly to get fresh air and perspective. Mental health is something that is not getting better in this country. Numbers suggest that it's getting more and more severe. And it's not necessarily people that are going out shooting up schools or people that are going out doing bad things, right? Mass shootings, stabbings here. It's not necessarily those hardcore things. A lot of times it's just an individual that feels like their life is falling apart. And if that's you, I want you to know that I have had 1 or 2 times in my life where I felt like that. I think we all have. So just know that you're not alone. For every 100 people out there at any given time, 10 or 15 of them are struggling. And that means that most likely there's 1 or 2 that are really, really bottom of the earth. When you have elation, happiness, and joy type moments, they're rare. That's why when you have them, you should really appreciate them. And when you have moments that are sad, sometimes it's okay to cry, right? Sometimes it's okay to watch a comedy so that you can laugh and get out of the cry mode. And sometimes it's good just to walk. And if you ever just want to start at a walk and just start running, I've done that before, you know? Sometimes you just want to run out of your 40s and run right back into your 20s, you know? There's a lot of things that happen to guys and girls when we hit our 40s, 50s, or 60s. We start to feel like things are falling apart on our bodies. And we no longer feel like, hey, I think I could live to be 80, 90, or 100. We honestly don't know. One of my best friends in the world, Jason, died at age 44, maybe 43, I forget. Either way, I think we can all agree that's about 30 or 40 years too early, you know? And so on Facebook, I see pictures of his son playing Pop Warner football and, you know, his wife getting remarried, and I'm happy for her. But it's a sad situation. I wish I would have been there for him, but as adults, we weren't really in each other's lives. But anyway, what I did right now was not a major half-hour walk or a 45-minute walk. It was just a little 10-minute walk, just around the little block here. And it's one of those things where you've been contemplating adding some extra credit anyway. Go ahead and make it official. We're in our 2nd month. We're going to be in our 3rd month before you know it. So it's about time that you added that 2nd walk. But remember, your walk is automatically helping you physically. What you need to do is kind of sit down before you go on your walk, kind of figure out the things that you'd like to kind of clear up, right? Pull the weeds out of your garden so that you have clarity. And sometimes that extra credit walk in the evening is all you need. When I walked out of the house, it was because I just watched a couple videos on stress that I'm going to be sharing. So I just want you to know that my little prayer and hope for today is that you're just a little bit less stressed than you were yesterday. And to continue that, I hope that you're even less stressed tomorrow. Let's pull for each other. And let's watch not only our weight go down, but let's watch our stress levels go down too. Because I think we all deserve it. And I'll talk to you guys later. I love giant trees that create a bunch of shade, you know, where they're so big, you're just like, yeah, that's a shade tree. Isn't that a ficus or a fig? No, it's just a shade tree, just a gigantic tree. That's a pine tree, Jesse, whatever. It's a shade tree as far as I'm concerned. Shade trees are so important to me during the summer because seriously, the shade feels about 5 or 10 degrees cooler during the summer. Still hot as heck. Out here in Arizona, we have a saying that at nighttime or during the day, it'll be 100 degrees in the shade because it literally is boiling hot out here. And even the shade is not very much cooler, but it's still cooler than in the direct sun. No doubt about it. So one of the reasons that I wanted to show you guys what Robert ate to lose 75 pounds was he was one of the few people that kind of stressed his desserts. Some of us really love desserts, and just the whole idea of ditching desserts scares us. But what he showed me in his diet was that, he's still very much enjoying a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at night. He has ice cream treats that he found worked for him and didn't really kill him calorie-wise, right? He eats 1 or 2 Chobani Greek yogurts. And what they don't tell you is that when you get the Greek yogurt that's sugar-free, it's really, really sweet. Like they put some sort of weird sweetener in there that just tastes incredibly sweet. So I'm not a big fan of those. Only because they get you craving more sweets. And that might be what he's going through, and we don't really see it because he's keeping it under control. But again, that goes back to what I was saying. Once you lose 30 or 40 pounds, or in his case, 75 pounds, all of a sudden you can eat 1 or 2 ice creams and 1 or 2 Greek yogurts, and it doesn't really affect you because now, in addition to eating well, he's also exercising. And I don't know if he really discussed his drinks too much, but we know that he got rid of soda completely. So I have to assume he's drinking a lot of water. I don't know if you've noticed a constant theme with all of these diets, but basically it goes like this. They all recommend that you walk, they all recommend that you avoid sugar, and they all recommend that you drink a lot of water, right? Even if they don't say it, they still do, because if you avoid sugar, that means you're automatically staying away from fruit juices and from soda, right? So what better way of telling somebody to drink water without actually telling them to drink water? So if you take the component out of every single diet out there, minus maybe veganism, and if every diet tells you ideally to cut out sugars and drink water and then walk, well, guess what? That's the magic component. That is the magic right there. It's just like when you look at the back of a product, right? It's got all these different products and chemicals in it. But if you notice, the very first thing it'll say is high fructose corn syrup or sugar, right? That's what makes it taste sweet. The high fructose corn syrup or the sugar. And that's what makes our diet work, guys, is it's the same thing that makes every diet work. Water, walking and no sugar. But think about it, it's a trip. Every single diet out there kind of complains about one another, or not complains, but challenges their way against others, right? But in reality, the thing that they're doing across the board is probably the main reason they're losing weight. Because I believe if you drink water, avoid sugar, and walk, you can eat kind of whatever you want. Again, let's say it the way I like to say it. Because you never eat sugar, you can eat sugar whenever you want. Because you always drink water, you can have a soda whenever you want. And because you walk nonstop every day, you can take a day off walking whenever you want. But whenever you decide to take a day off of any of them, make sure you still do the other two rules that we have. Because think about this, your whole life you never did that. Your whole life you never ever did that. And now you can. By the way, as we progress closer and closer to the 90 days, I have to up my intensity. So I know that when we all started, I said it was the easiest plan, but you can't just walk into the future blindfolded, right? You have to take a look at the scale. And if the scale tells you that you're not on pace to lose the weight that you want to when you hit your goal, or when, you know, at the end of the 3 months, then you have to kind of do something more. So before it gets too hot, there is this little half-hour, 45-minute window at the end of the day where there's a little bit of shade and the sun's not so high in the sky, so it's not as warm. So that's kind of the route that I'm going for, to get a little extra credit in. You want to get to the point where you just naturally do extra credit, to be honest with you. And I figure if we're walking about 1.5 miles in half an hour, then that means altogether we're walking about 3 miles in a complete hour. I'm going to walk back this way so I can stay in the shade. One of the things I did about a week ago is I kind of ditched my banana shakes that I used to always drink in front of you guys on the reaction. And the reason I did wasn't because the videos we watched changed my mind and I'm staying away from fruit and sugars altogether. It wasn't really that. It was more of I want to really start losing weight like crazy over the next month and a half here. And that's really the way to do it. If you don't need the snack and you're not craving for it that bad, just ditch it. But don't ditch it forever. Remember, after 90 days, if you do get to the weight that you want, don't be afraid to, do a 2/3 rule every now and again, Because what's the point of getting down 30, 40 pounds to a really good weight and then not occasionally enjoying something like a candy bar or a piece of cake? Again, if you know deep in your heart that it's a trigger for you and one candy bar will lead to a dozen candy bars, then maybe ignore that advice. But one thing you'll notice is that as your body gets smaller and you start to shrink, so to speak, you'll be able to handle eating a candy bar without it, adding a pound to your body every time you do. So we want you to be able to enjoy yourselves. So I agree with her in that regard. You don't want to be punishing yourself forever. And even though I don't think it's a horrible punishment to eat fruit over candies and over sodas and stuff, you still want to be able to enjoy a beverage every now and then. So yeah, take a look at your scale. If you're not quite where you'd like to be, we've got another 45 days, or if you joined me a week or two late, you've got another 50 or 60 days. This is a good time to start doing baby steps upward and onward. If you know that you've only lost 4 or 5 pounds like yours truly, then you might want to go ahead and see if you can cut out another soda, because I assume you've gone from 2 or 3 sodas down to 1. See if you can get rid of that last soda. See if you can do an extra little walk in the evening. And if it's impossible or something you just really don't want to do, you don't have to do it by any means. I still think you're going to notice some pretty amazing stuff over this last month and a half. The first thing that I've noticed, and I'm wondering if some of you have too, is you do have more energy when you walk consistently. Your clothes do start to feel a lot better on you as the pudginess kind of goes away and it's kind of replaced by more firmness. I don't know how much muscle we're creating by walking, but I think it's a little bit of muscle, at least in the lower body, right? And then if you're swinging your arms, you're probably burning a little bit of calories and stuff in your upper body as well, if it works like that. I'm not a scientist, I don't know how that works, but I just know that if you move your arms, you probably are burning a couple more calories than if you kept them still.
Hi, you are currently being recorded.
I know I am. So that's how easy it is to do a little extra credit walk. You just basically have to say, you know what, it's a nice day, it's not too hot. I'm gonna go outside and kill another 150 calories, because remember, a half-hour walk, it's about 150 to 200 calories burned. And if you put a little pep to your step, you might even burn a few more calories on top of that. But again, I'm not a huge fan of, booking it while you walk. Just enjoy your walk. If it takes you 90 days to get in better shape, great. If it takes you 105 days, it's not that big of a deal. The main thing is we're going to keep going. And imagine this, in another month and a half, we're going to start seeing people saying, hey, my 90 days, I ended losing 20 pounds. I ended losing 30 pounds. I ended losing 17 pounds. That's what I envision our comments going from hello and good morning to I'm down 20 pounds. Yay!